Oh, Ethel, darling, you do look stunning. You look divine, darling. Oh, Ethel, what is all this? And during that time, I consider the years I spent on I Love Lucy to be perhaps the biggest ripoff of my career. For decades, everyone believed Vivian Vance signed a contract to gain weight just to make Lucy look thinner. But that was all a lie. Lucy made it up as a joke at a party, and somehow the world believed it for years. The real truth about what happened behind the cameras was much darker. Vivian suffered in ways nobody knew about. She came to work with black eyes. She hated her co-star so much that when he died, she celebrated with champagne. The industry tried to bury these truths for decades, but now, everything she wanted the world to know is finally coming out. Vivian Roberta Jones was born on July 26, 1909, in Cherryvale, Kansas. Her childhood home wasn't filled with songs or stories. It was ruled by strict Methodist rules and a mother who believed acting was something shameful. Her mother warned her that performing would send her straight to hell. Vivian was the second of 6 children, but from the start, she felt like an outsider in her own family. Her natural love for entertaining clashed with her mother's beliefs, and every time she showed her spark, it was quickly shut down. Her mother didn't just dislike the idea of acting, she believed it was wicked. This created a war inside the house, where Vivian's spirit kept trying to rise, but was constantly forced to bow. That tension became a part of her, and it would follow her for years. When Vivian was 6, her family moved to Independence, Kansas. That's where her fire truly lit up. She started sneaking out at night, not for fun, but for freedom. She wanted to perform. She wanted to sing, to dance, to be on stage, even if her mother believed it was wrong. At school, she found someone who didn't judge her dreams. A drama teacher named Anna Engelman gave her the space to shine. Vivian joined cheerleading, took part in beauty contests, and even went to school with a boy named William Ing, who would later become a famous playwright. But back at home, things stayed the same. Her family still tried to break her spirit. The more she performed, the more her mother pushed back. Friends started calling her Viv, maybe because it sounded freer, lighter, not chained to the life she was trying to escape. Then came the moment that changed everything. She dropped her family name. She stopped being Jones and chose to become Vivian Vance. She picked Vance after a man named Vance Randolph, who collected old folk stories. Maybe she saw herself in those stories. Wild, free, not afraid of what people thought. She left Kansas and went to Tulsa, chasing stages while her family moved on without her. She wasn't just running away, she was cutting the cord. She wasn't her mother's daughter anymore. She belonged to herself now. In 1930, at just 21, she became one of the first performers at a small place called the Albuquerque Little Theater. On that stage, she played both a seductive woman and a gentle nun, 2 sides of her life, in a way. Her performances were so powerful that people started calling the building the Vivian Vance Playhouse. The community saw her talent and rallied around her. They even held a benefit show just to raise money so she could go to New York and study acting. In a small review, she sang My Man and became a local star. Everything she had been told not to do was suddenly the very thing that gave her a future. With $50 and a suitcase of dreams, she got on a train to New York. She worked as a waitress by day and auditioned by night. Rejection was constant. She often skipped meals just to save subway fare, but she didn't give up. And finally, in 1932, she landed a chorus role in Music in the Air, a Broadway musical that ran for 2 years. Her moment had come. Slowly, people began to notice the way she moved, how she delivered her lines, and especially how funny she was. Bit by bit, the chorus girl was becoming something more. In 1937, she got a last-minute call to replace someone in a play called Hooray for What, and she ended up doing over 200 performances. That led to her biggest stage role in 1941, when she starred in a hit musical called Let's Face It, alongside Danny Kaye and Eve Arden. The show ran for 547 performances, and Vivian had finally proven herself. But success didn't erase the pain. She kept moving forward, even when it hurt. She later joined another show called Over 21, which took her all the way to Africa during World War II. She was no longer in the background. She was the star, but her personal life was falling apart. At 19, she married a man named Joseph Donick Jr., hoping marriage would help her escape her strict home. It didn't. He left town after 3 years, and she was left behind again. Later, she married an actor named Philippe Aubert in 1941. That marriage lasted longer, but was even more painful. Aubert didn't like his wife being more successful than him. He became violent, he beat her. He made her feel small. Even Lucille Ball, her future co-star, saw it and called it out. But the damage ran deep. Vivian kept performing, but inside, she was breaking. In 1945, while touring with a play called The Voice of the Turtle, Vivian had a breakdown. She described it simply, "Let's face it, I cracked up." She felt like she was losing her mind. The weight of childhood, the pressure of fame, the pain of her marriage. It all came crashing down. She started therapy and stayed in it for years. She slowly put herself back together. That experience changed her. She began visiting psychiatric hospitals, not as a celebrity, but as someone who knew the pain. She didn't try to fix people. She just told them they weren't alone. She kept acting. Her biggest success on stage was still Let's Face It. But behind the applause were 1,000 missed chances. After a revival of The Cradle Will Rock in 1947, she moved to California to try her hand at film. It didn't work out. She acted in just 2 movies, The Secret Fury in 1950 and The Blue Veil in 1951. One producer offered her a flashy striptease number in a musical. She turned it down. That role later made Mary Martin a star. She also lost a part in Carousel because a choreographer wanted her fired as revenge. The setbacks piled up. Still, she didn't give up. In 1951, something big happened in television. A 42-year-old woman named Vivian Vance was chosen to play Ethel Mertz in I Love Lucy. For decades, people believed she had signed a strange contract saying she had to gain weight. 15 pounds, to be exact. To make Lucille Ball look more glamorous by comparison. But that contract never existed. It was just a joke. Lucille made it up for fun at a party, writing silly rules like gaining 5 pounds every week and never being funnier than her. But people took it seriously, and the lie stayed alive for years. In truth, Vivian's weight simply changed over time. She was always trying to diet. And while Lucy may have wanted to look more beautiful next to her, there was never a real contract. Still, that myth became one of the most famous stories in Hollywood. Vivian wasn't some unknown actress before I Love Lucy. She had been on Broadway since the late 1920s. She even stood in for the great Ethel Merman in 2 Cole Porter musicals. By the early 40s, she had her own lead roles. In 1951, she was performing in a play in La Jolla, California, when Daisy Arnott and producer Jess Oppenheimer saw her on stage. They hired her right away. But when Lucy found out, she wasn't happy. She looked at Vivian and said, "You can't play Ethel. You're my age. You have the same hair color. You're too pretty." So to fix that, the crew made Vivian wear clothes that were too tight and used makeup to make her look awkward. They wanted her to seem older and less glamorous so Lucy could shine. The first time Vivian met her on-screen husband, William Frawley, she didn't know who he was. She turned to Desi and asked, "Who's that old man over there?" And when she was told that he'd be playing her husband, she laughed and said he looked more like her grandfather. Frawley heard that and never forgave her. He disliked her from the very beginning. That dislike never went away, and their real tension became part of the show. But she didn't just clash with Frawley. Lucy and Vivian also argued sometimes. In one moment during Lucy's pregnancy, she snapped at Vivian for being late. Vivian fired back, saying something so sharp that Lucy couldn't help but laugh. From that day on, they clicked as comedy partners. Their fights may have been real, but they created magic on screen. In February 1954, Vivian made history. She became the first woman ever to win an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress. She won for playing Ethel in 1953, and the award created a brand new category in the Emmys. It proved how important side characters really were. Vivian was nominated 3 more times in 1954, 1956, and 1957. But even with the award and fame, she felt stuck. She had once been a glamorous Broadway star, but now everyone only saw her as Ethel, the plain landlady. The Emmy made her a legend, but it also trapped her in a role that she feared would never end. Money became a fight, too. In season 1, she earned just $280 a week, the same as Frawley. But by season 6, she was making $7,500 a week. That wasn't luck. It was because she had a strong agent who demanded better pay every single year. Back then, it was rare for women to ask for more money, but Vivian didn't settle. When she joined The Lucy Show in 1962, she asked for even more. She wanted her name up front, better clothes, and more say in how things were done. She knew her worth and wasn't afraid to prove it. One of the most loved scenes in I Love Lucy came in 1952. It was the chocolate factory moment when Lucy and Ethel were working on a conveyor belt stuffing chocolates. Everyone laughed, watching them panic as the chocolates sped up. But behind the scenes, it wasn't funny at all. The machine kept breaking down and speeding up randomly. Vivian had to keep eating chocolate over and over for each take. By the end, she was sick to her stomach. What looked like pure comedy came at a painful cost. That same year, Lucy filmed the famous Vitamia to Vegamin commercial sketch. It looked hilarious, Lucy getting drunk on a health tonic and slurring her lines, but it wasn't acting. The prop tonic was real and had 23% alcohol. The crew didn't realize just how strong it was. Lucy had to swallow spoon after spoon, and by the final takes, she was actually drunk. She could barely stand straight, but those scenes became television gold. It showed how early television sometimes pushed actors to unsafe limits. Vivian's Emmy win in 1953 meant the world to her, but deep down, she was hurting. She gave a beautiful speech, thanking Lucy for her friendship and support. But inside, she struggled with always being second best. She had talent, looks, and a voice that could fill a theater, but the world only saw Ethel. She won the Emmy at 44, but instead of new opportunities, she just kept getting the same type of roles. The very award that crowned her also trapped her. In 1954, Vivian finally got to show her musical talents. She had studied opera and had a voice that could compete with Broadway stars. She pushed hard for Ethel-focused episodes like Ethel's Birthday, where she finally got to sing. Her voice was beautiful, trained, powerful, and full of grace. But William Frawley mocked her every chance he got, saying she couldn't sing. Still, fans loved those episodes. For once, Vivian was allowed to shine. It was a glimpse of the star she really was before the Ethel label took over. By 1956, fame turned frightening. I Love Lucy had become a worldwide hit, and fans began crossing boundaries. Vivian got thousands of letters every week. Some were sweet, others were scary. Some people followed her in public. She wasn't protected the way today's stars are. She had to hire her own security just to feel safe walking down the street. The fame that brought her fortune also brought fear. Television had made her feel like family to millions of strangers, and not all of them knew where the line was. The hatred between Vivian and Frawley kept growing. When the show first aired on October 15, 1951, she had already joked that he should be playing her father. He was 64. She was 39. She felt humiliated to be cast as his wife. He overheard her talking and got revenge by calling her a sack of doorknobs during rehearsal. Desi Arnaz later wrote that Frawley hated her voice and hated working with her. Their dislike for each other wasn't hidden. It filled the studio. By 1953, things got worse. Frawley's drinking was out of control. He was drunk most of the time on set and had to keep his hands in his pockets to hide the shaking. He refused to listen to directors and locked himself in his dressing room during fights. Vivian couldn't take it anymore. She demanded separate dressing rooms. Desi had to keep them from walking off the set entirely. From then on, they avoided each other off camera as much as possible. In 1955, Desilu Studios offered both actors a spin-off show about Fred and Ethel. It could have made them both rich. Frawley agreed right away, but Vivian said no. She didn't want to work with him ever again. She told producers she didn't believe the show would work without Lucy and Ricky. Her refusal shocked everyone. Hollywood called their chemistry gold, even if it came from hate. But Vivian chose peace over profit. Her hatred was stronger than her hunger for fame. Then came the final chapter. On March 3, 1966, William Frawley died of a heart attack on Hollywood Boulevard. That night, Vivian was at a dinner party. When she heard the news, she didn't cry. She didn't pause. Instead, she raised her glass and said, "Champagne for everyone." It wasn't a joke. It was a celebration. She didn't go to his funeral. She didn't send flowers. She didn't say a single kind word. Their feud, which had started in 1951, ended only with his death. And even then, it didn't really end. It simply stopped. Lucille Ball, who had always controlled every detail on set, clashed with Vivian constantly. They had been America's comedy darlings since 1951, but now they were struggling for creative space. Vivian felt smothered. After 3 years, she made a heartbreaking choice. She walked away. In 1965, at the height of her second television success, she left the show, leaving everyone shocked. She wasn't just giving up a role. She was giving up security, fame, and the chance to rewrite her image. Just before all this, between 1960 and 1962, she'd been making guest appearances on the Red Skelton Hour. In one sketch called The Iceman Guth, which aired in February 1962, she played Clara Appleby, a sharp, funny character who proved Vivian didn't need Lucy to get laughs. She also showed up in Appleby's Predictions back in 1960. These roles helped her prove something important to herself and the industry. She had range. She could stand on her own. Millions watched, many realizing for the first time that she was more than just Ethel from the Mertz apartment. But not every chapter brought applause. In 1966, she tried to return to Broadway in Woody Allen's Don't Drink the Water. It was supposed to be her comeback. Instead, it turned into a public disaster. She was fired during early previews and replaced by another actress. Woody Allen himself admitted she wasn't right for the part, but that didn't make it any easier. The rejection happened in front of critics and peers. The play later opened in New York on November 17, 1966, and ran for 598 performances without her. This failure cut deep. Once again, she was boxed into her old role, stuck as Ethel forever. It felt like every step away from Lucy only led to more heartbreak. By the 1970s, Vivian had traded the stage and sitcoms for something more stable, but less glamorous. She became the cheerful face of Maxwell House coffee commercials, playing a character named Maxine. In one of the most remembered ads from around 1976, she handed out coffee with a smile, saying, "Could be the best instant of your day." These commercials were cozy and familiar, and she did them well, but deep down she knew what they meant. Her days of chasing dramatic roles were over. She had once won the very first Emmy Award for Supporting Actress back in 1953. Now she was just trying to stay visible. Acting alongside Margaret Hamilton, best known as the Wicked Witch, they both seemed trapped by the same fate. Loved for one role, forgotten for everything else. In 1977, something beautiful happened. Lucille Ball invited her to film a one-time CBS special called Lucy Calls the President. Vivian played the neighbor again. For many watching, it was just a sweet reunion. But few knew that Vivian had suffered a stroke during filming. She tried to hide it, and on screen she still looked like the old Viv, charming, funny, charming. But the truth was cruel. She was sick. That special would be her second to last appearance. Her final one came in a short-lived series called Sam with Mark Harmon. Behind the scenes, she was fighting something far worse than low ratings. She had breast cancer, and she had been living with it for years. Vivian's story wasn't just about fame and comedy. It was about heartbreak, resilience, and pain that most people never saw. Her first marriage, back in 1933, had been a nightmare. Joseph Donick was dangerously jealous, and just 2 years later, she had to flee to a women's shelter to escape his abuse. She kept this secret for decades, but it shaped everything that came after. She began to fear men. Her anxiety grew, and sadly, the pattern repeated. Her second husband, Philip Aubert, brought even more suffering. In 1954, during filming of I Love Lucy, he hit her so badly she came to work with a black eye. The makeup couldn't hide it. Lucille Ball saw it and exploded with anger. "If you don't divorce him, I will." "For you," she told her, but nothing could erase the damage. Ober's career was sinking while hers was rising, and his jealousy turned violent. Even though Daisy Arnaz gave him small parts on the show to calm things down, it only made him angrier. Vivian was stuck, terrified, and exhausted. The emotional cost of all this pain kept building. She had her first nervous breakdown in 1945 while touring for a stage play. In the years after, she was diagnosed with something called anxiety neurosis, rooted in her childhood and toxic relationships. There are mentions of a second breakdown in 1974, one so severe it possibly led to electroshock therapy, though exact details are scarce. What's clear is that she battled mental illness her entire life, long before people talked about it openly. In a time when mental health was taboo, she quietly became a voice for others who were suffering. Her deepest sorrow, though, was something she rarely spoke of: her inability to have children. She had a miscarriage early in her marriage to Ober, and after that, nothing worked. Every failed attempt broke her a little more. Watching Lucille Ball raise her own children, Lucy and Desi Jr., made it harder. Vivian loved them like her own. She tried to fill that emptiness by mentoring young actresses, giving them the care she couldn't give to children of her own. But inside, she never stopped feeling like she had failed. In 1973, her fight against breast cancer began. She underwent a mastectomy, chemotherapy, and later, surgeries as the cancer spread to her bones. She didn't let people see the pain. On the outside, she smiled, worked, joked, but behind closed doors, she was in agony. She kept going anyway. Even close friends didn't realize how serious her condition was until it was too late. She never wanted pity. She just wanted to live with dignity. Even the way she looked on I Love Lucy had been a quiet form of suffering. In interviews from 1977, she revealed that she was forced to stay heavier than she wanted to, just to make Lucy look thinner. She was made to wear ugly clothes and bad makeup, all to keep up the image of the frumpy housewife. She hated it. Off-screen, she was stylish and elegant, but the show wouldn't let that version of her shine. The pressure chipped away at her, and she needed therapy just to get through filming. Going back even further, in the 1930s, she had been misdiagnosed with Bell's palsy after part of her face became paralyzed. But years later, she would connect that to her childhood trauma. Not just a physical illness, but the body reacting to emotional pain. She became deeply self-conscious about her face, about how she looked, how she was seen. That insecurity never left her. She was offered millions to continue the Fred and Ethel story in a new show after I Love Lucy ended. William Frawley was ready, but she wasn't. She hated him. Their relationship had been toxic from day one. He drank too much, and she once made a comment about his age, 22 years older than her, and he never forgave her. When CBS offered a spin-off, she walked away from all of it. No amount of money was worth being near him again. In her final days, just weeks before she passed, Lucille Ball visited her. Vivian was staying at a house in Belvedere. Paige Peterson, a young woman living nearby, watched them spend the whole afternoon together. They laughed. They cried. When Lucy left, she was in tears. She didn't say a word. She just walked away. Broken. Lucy Arnaz, Lucy's daughter, later said that her mother cried about losing Vivian for months. They had fought, yes, but in the end, they were soulmates in comedy, bound by something deeper than fame. Before she died on August 17, 1979, Vivian Vance dictated a series of letters exposing how the industry had always treated her. She had wanted to direct, but producers said that wasn't lady life. They blocked her at every turn. Those letters weren't just parting words. They were a final cry against the walls she had fought her entire life.